You are listening to the Next Play podcast, the playbook for high-performing leaders who want to exceed their full potential. From walking on the Ole Miss football team at 5'7", 150 pounds and earning a full D1 scholarship, to coaching thousands around the world and working with massive organizations like IBM. I've learned countless lessons that I'll be sharing right here with you. Join me as I interview some of the most successful people so you too can learn how to focus on always moving forward by deciding, planning, and executing on the next play relentlessly. This came up this past week on how to make smarter decisions quickly. And the reason that this came up is I've had a few newer programs that have been released, and I'm watching people and their decision-making process, and I can tell pretty quickly who are the ones that are going to take action and be successful and who's not. And I thought this was so interesting, and I'm just, obviously after we've been doing it for a while, it's so interesting to see and watch people kind of fumble over themselves, and they just, people don't teach this. They don't teach how to make quick decisions, smart decisions. And so watching people kind of fumble through this, and it's kind of sad. And I just think this is such a powerful thing, and especially as relentless warriors, right? Like what it actually takes to be a relentless warrior and being able to make smart, quick decisions is really important. So today we're going to talk about the types of decision makers, the 2-minute rule, and then I will reveal the relentless decision system. So you can make smart decisions and choices quickly. It's this alone is going to drastically change the way that you function each day because of the fact that we have so many different, basically there's so many different things that can happen, decisions that have to be made every single day, right? Small decisions, big decisions. So let's jump right into it. Number two, there are 3 types of decision makers. There's 3 types of decision makers, and you're going to fall into one of these 3 categories. By the way, what's up, Kyle? What's up, Siobhan? What's up, John? What's up, Patricia? Let's see, who else do we got here? Before I go into this, what's up, Mr. William? Let's see, who else do we got here today? Okay. What's up, Muhammad? What's up, Rick? What's up, James? What's up, Alicia? How are all of you guys doing today? Andres, into the game. I see you. All right. So anyways, there's 3 types. I missed that, guys. Sorry. There's 3 types of decision makers. It's really important to know which category that you fall in. So all the way on the left, you have procrastinators, right? And these are the people that literally end up just never making a decision. So the non-decision makers. And so those are the procrastinators. The middle here, these are the fence sitters, and this is where most people sit. And fence sitters don't have a process that they follow. They kind of just say, I'll listen to my gut. They don't trust themselves, and 90% of the time they miss out on opportunities. And this is where I would say the majority of the population sits. And then on the right, you have the relentless warriors, and these are the action takers. These are people who make smart, quick decisions. And this doesn't mean that every decision's a yes. It doesn't mean every decision's right. You could say no and say it quickly, right? Because you know it's not the best thing, it's not the right fit. Or if you have 2 or 3 options, you're not always going to be perfect, but you're going to make smart decisions most of the time and quickly. And if you look at fence sitters, they make the same amount of smart decisions. It just takes them longer, so they miss more opportunities, right? So where do you fall right now? Like if you had to say, hey, this is where I'm at right now, where do you fall in this spectrum? Are you a procrastinator or you never make decisions? Are you normally a fence sitter? Or are you a relentless warrior? Are you an action taker, a decision maker? Which one are you? Which one are you? So let's break these down. So the first one is a procrastinator, right? They never make decisions at all. They never get anything that they truly want because they allow fear to control their life, right? Most people procrastinate and don't do things because out of fear, right? Like, what will people think about me? What if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? And as human beings, we're constantly evaluating our status. So we ask questions, procrastinators ask questions like, hey, will this elevate my status or will it lower my status? Very simply, will it elevate my status or will it lower my status? So procrastinators never make decisions. They live their whole life out of fear, whether that be failure, success. Majority of it is what people think about them, and they're so concerned about their status, so they just don't ever make decisions at all. Number two, this is the fence sitter, right? So these are people who sit on the fence about everything, right? Small decisions, big decisions. They just are constantly always sitting on the fence. And the bottom line is if you sit on the fence about everything, you're going to experience something called decision fatigue. And this shit will wipe you out. Like, I don't know, you've probably done this, but you're kind of like always, everything throughout the day, you never know what to do. You kind of want to like reach out to other people and get advice and this and that. And like, that's all fine in certain situations, but you're just constantly always so on the fence that your body goes into fatigue and you're tired and your brain literally like gets wiped out. It's like you just ran like a 5K, right? And you're tired. And you're going to miss out on so many opportunities. People that sit on the fence miss out on so many great opportunities in their life because they just don't have a process, right? So we're going to really, really hone in on a process today, right? Exactly, William. Paralysis by analysis, right? So I got this rule for you, man. I think you're really going to love it. So, okay, action taker, relentless warrior, right? If you haven't watched the course, How to Be a Relentless Warrior, I absolutely highly suggest it, right? Look, if you're not always right. You're not always going to be right, and that's okay. They're not always right. But here's what they are. They're always all in. They make a decision, and they go all in. Let me share a quick story with you. When I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, I was doing really well. I was living in New York City. I had a good job. I was doing well. But I knew there was something else that I needed to pursue. And so I had an opportunity with a group of friends to do this kind of startup thing and move out to Santiago, Chile. There was this grant that they had, and we were applying for it, and we really thought we were going to get it. And so I quickly made the decision to go out to Santiago, Chile. Now, I look back, it wasn't the right decision, but I made the decision and I went all in. I put all of my energy, my heart, my passion into this one thing. And although it didn't work out and I was able to adapt and make different decisions and change, it really changed and created a person that I was able to build on from my college days. This person who went all in, gave everything that they had, and even though I wasn't successful in that program, that startup, we never even got accepted, I learned so much that it allowed me to excel in the next thing that I did, right? And so for you have decisions that you make throughout the day, every week, every month, every year, massive decisions that you're not always going to be right. But the question is, did you go all in? Because when you go all in, you learn new skills, you create new habits, you remove interference, right? You're constantly going through the Relentless Warrior system. And that's what's so powerful about being able to make quick decisions, right? And you may be saying, well, what if it's a decision about money? What if it's, make more, right? Like that's the biggest, that's one of the most frustrating things. Like make more, do more. Money's going to come and go. Don't worry so much about that. Right? Obviously, you have a family, you need to take care of things. I get it. But I would rather see people make tough decisions in their life and then go all in, and then after execution, be able to adapt and make changes, which is what we're going to kind of talk about today. So everyone has 2 to 3 massive decisions that completely change the outcome of their life. 2 to 3 typically. I'll share a quick one with you. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't. But after high school football, dream playing big time college football, I didn't get to go to a big school. I went to a school called Jacksonville University. My first year there, I was redshirted. I wasn't eligible to play in any games. I was too small. They didn't think I was good enough. And after the season was over, the coach gets fired. And this coach that brought me in, the small school, not Division I, right? He gets fired. And so a new coach comes in, he takes a look at me, and he cuts me from the team. And this was the end, right? This was the end of my football career. This is the end of my 15-year journey to earn this Division I football scholarship, this one dream that I had. And I remember I was sitting in the car, and I had a choice. It was a two-way street. I could, like in this picture, walk across the fire or not. I could continue to go after this dream or not. And I made the decision at that moment. I remember there was tears in my eyes. I made the decision at that moment that I wasn't going to give up. And I was going to try and find a school 2-3 times the size, way more talented, to give me a chance. It doesn't even make logical sense. Like no logical sense. But I made that decision. And obviously that changed. That was one of the biggest, most massive decisions of my life. And I made it within a few minute period sitting in my car. Okay. So, same thing when I decided that I was going to make a career switch and go all in on speaking, right? That was another massive decision. And so most people have 2, 3, 4 massive decisions in their life, usually 1 or 2 at a younger age, and then 1 or 2 in your later career, right? And so it's about being prepared as humanly possible, with which you're all on this call because you want to be prepared, right? And constantly improving your skills so that when decisions cross your desk, cross your face, you can act. That's the key, is like you're so prepared because you've developed yourself in such a way, and the soft skills that are needed, not just the technical skills of how to code or how to sell or how to catch a football, right? Not this technical, but the soft skills, which is what Relentless University is all about. You're so prepared that you're able to act, And so the first thing I want to share with you is the 2-minute rule. So we know the 3 types of people and how and where you sit. So the first thing is we've got to figure out what route we're going to go, what direction that we're going to go. And this is very simple, the 2-minute rule. This guy's face, I don't know, it makes me laugh. The 2-minute rule, right? So the idea here is to create a self-imposed deadline, which is 2 minutes, right? And you may say, Richie, well, shit, you're telling me I have to make a decision on whether or not to switch jobs, or whether or not to quit my job, or whether or not to switch teams, or whether or not to get a divorce, or whatever, right? Like these are big decisions, or whether or not to sell the house. In 2 minutes, that's crazy. Well, okay, like we can adjust that a little bit on the size of the size of the decision, but most decisions can be done in 2 minutes or less. And I'm going to share with you a very simple process to do that. So the first thing you're going to do is there's 3 questions you're going to ask yourself. Okay, within these 2 minutes, there's 3 questions you're going to ask yourself. And then we're going to create a T-chart. Very simple. So number 1, can the decision be reversed? So Jeff Bezos said this, and he said, there are decisions you can take back, or there's decisions you can't take back, very simply. Decisions you can take back or not. And this is important because if you can reverse the decision, then please do not waste any more than 2 minutes. All right? So if you can reverse the decision, do not waste any more than 2 minutes. And if you can't reverse the decision, this is when you would think about extending that timeout, right? But most decisions can be made in 2 minutes. So that's question number 1. Question number 2, will it get you closer to your goal or not? Will making this decision get you closer to your goal or not? And if you don't know your goal yet, you got to go to the course, How to Set Goals. Very simple. But I would say 90% of you on this right now have a goal and you're reading it every day, right? But will it get you closer to your goal or not? Simple question. Yes or no? Yes or no? And number 3, is it something you are prepared to execute on, right? When you make this decision, the route that you go, are you prepared or not to execute on it? Because you must be able to execute or have the means to execute it, or are willing to do the actual work. Like, are you willing to do the work, right? You have to, if you make a decision to do something and you're not willing to do the work, you're not committed, you're not all in, then what's the point, right? Then that's not a decision you want to make. So these are the 3 questions, and I'll just run through them real quick. Can the decision be reversed? Will it get you closer to your goal or not? Is it something you're prepared to execute on? Right? And you say yes to all 3 of those, then we're in the 2 minutes and it's go time, right? Right? So those 3 questions are the questions you ask. Now, I'm going to introduce you to the Relentless decision system, right? There's 4 components of it, and this system will make your life, and when I say it, every day will be so easy, right? And you could do it on your phone. You can carry a notepad. It's really, really easy. And there's 4 steps to it. Number 1 is to decide. Number 2 is to execute. Number 3 is to evaluate. And number 4 is to adjust. Very simple. Decide, execute, evaluate, adjust. Super important. This could be on a phone call. It could be on a sales call. It could be in a meeting. It could be on the field during a play, right? It could be in so many scenarios. Decide, execute, evaluate, adjust, right? So number 1, decide. You got to decide, right? We're no longer fence sitters. We're not procrastinators. We're relentless warriors, and we make decisions, right? There's 2 axles to this, right? There's the pros and the cons. You hear this all the time. The pros and cons list, just a pros and cons list alone will not work. Well, I don't know if you've tried it before. You've written out a pros and cons list and you stared at it and you're like, oh, well, there's more cons, but some of them are way more, there's more cons, but some of these pros are way more important than the cons, and then your pros and cons out, and then the shit doesn't work, right? Because you don't have values to those pros and cons. All right. So number 1, in order to decide, you're still in your 2 minutes. You answered those 3 questions. Boom. Yes, yes, yes. Boom. Okay. Now on your phone or on a piece of paper, whatever's in front of you right then and there, pick it up. And you are going to write down, all right, what are a couple of the pros? 2 or 3 of the pros, 2 or 3 of the cons. And you're going to value them. This is where people mess up. So the pro is a 10 out of 10. This pro is a 7 out of 10 of importance. This pro is a 6 out of 10, a 2 out of 10, a 1. And you're going to value. So you're going to write out, 3, 4, 5 pros, 3, 4, 5 cons. And then next to it, you're going to put a number value as most important. All right? And then you can make a decision. Right? And now I have some questions for you. All right? I've written out a few questions. Okay? So here's some questions you can ask yourself when making your pros list, because sometimes making a pros list isn't easy. Sometimes making a pros list isn't easy. So I got you, Andres. Okay, you got it. Sorry about that. I just saw your comment come through, but looks like you got it. So here are some questions when making your pros list. All right. What are the main benefits of this decision? I'll repeat it. What are the main benefits of this decision? What could you accomplish? What could you accomplish? Right? How does it position you in the future? And how does it impact others in your life? How does it impact others in your life? Right? So you've got to be able to ask these questions. It'll make it so much easier for you when you're doing your pros. And I'll have this in the materials for the challenge when we go through these questions for you once it's posted as a course. So here's a couple questions you can ask for the cons list. What are you giving up? Very simply, what are you giving up? What are the risks associated with this decision? What are the risks associated with this decision? Like, what are the risks that you have? And how will this, stall your goals? How will this stall your goals? All right. And then once you've written out those pros and those cons, and like the easiest thing to do is have on your phone, like I don't know about Android, but I know on the iPhone there's a notes section. This is where I have it. And I literally have a notes called decisions. And what I'll do is I have those questions, I have pros and cons, and I just type right underneath them. And then I remove them. And this is like, I did this, man, it was last year sometime. I can't find it, but I created a whole content on this, and I can't find it. But since then, I've always had it on my phone, this pros and cons, and it's so easy to make decisions. So much easier. So that's number one. You have to just decide, right? You have to decide. And it's quickly, 2 minutes, whip out, answer the 3 questions, whip out your phone, a notepad, write down 3 to 5 cons and value them. 3 to 5 pros and value them. That's it. You look at it, you add up the values, whichever values at more, you go. You just go, right? And you execute. I'm not going to get into failure on this, but you got to be okay with it. Like when you're look, you're not going to make every great decision in your life. It's impossible, right? We get that. And I'm not going to go into the whole failure thing, but you got to be okay with it, right? You got to go all in. I'll never forget when when I was at Ole Miss, we had a new head coach. His name was Houston Nutt, and he walked into the meeting room for the first time, and he said, "Look, if you don't have 2 feet in, get out." Very simply, if you don't have 2 feet in, get out. If you don't have 2 feet in, so you have to go all in on this decision. I swear, if you make a decision and you don't go all in, you will not execute it. You will not be successful, and that decision won't be a good decision. It just won't. Right? So you must go all in. So how do you execute? There's 3 questions you got to ask yourself. 3 questions you got to ask yourself. Number 1 is the what. Number 2 is the how, and number 3 is the when. What, how, when. We went over this actually as in the accountability section. It's a very, very simple process. The what, the how, and the when. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And when are you going to do it by? Anytime I have something I have to do, anytime I'm meeting with any of my staff, my coaches, my team members, at the end of our discussion, I always set next steps, right? That's part of the accountability process. There's 3 questions asked. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? When are you going to do it by? That's execution. Because now I can reach out when it was supposed to be done and be like, is it done or not? All right? So that's the execution is the what, the how, and the when. And you're going to do it, right? So except that you'll be wrong 25% of the time, right? Like you're just going to be wrong. But at least you made a decision. At least you made the decision. Where most people won't make a decision at all, right? Or they'll miss the decision because they sat on the fence, All right? So very simple. Simple in theory, but not easy. Simple in theory, but not easy. Number 3, you got to evaluate, right? You got to evaluate. Create an evaluation schedule. When do you need to evaluate this decision? Is it going to be in 1 week, in 2 weeks, in 1 month, in 6 months? When are you going to evaluate this decision, right? You may need to redo the pros and cons and put new values on them. But it's important that you at least evaluate what's going on. If you're so deep into a decision and it's not going your way, like, you need to reevaluate it, right? So it's okay to reevaluate because we know 25% of the time we're going to fail, right? So what I like to do is create some sort of evaluation. So for example, we went all in on this new campaign and I said, okay, in 1 week from now, before I lose too much money on it, or win too much, or make, I don't know what was gonna happen. I said in 1 week I'll come back and we'll reevaluate, right? And I set a schedule. It's very simple. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna reevaluate because I'm not gonna make a decision knowing that I'm 25% of the time is gonna be wrong. It's gonna be a bad decision and not have some sort of evaluation. So it's really, decide, execute on it, what, how, when, have some point you're going to go back and check it out. You're going to see what the status of that decision is, right? That's evaluation. And then number 4, you got to adjust. If you look at the greatest coaches of all time, and let's just use football as an example because it's easy, right? If you look at the greatest coaches in the game today, the Bill Belichick's, the Andy Reids, if you look at their bye week, okay? A bye week is when you have no game. So you have, 17 weeks in a season, but you only have 16 games. So at some point throughout the season, you don't have a game. You have a week where you're just off. And if you look at the greatest coaches, their record after a bye week is always like, I think Belichick's is something like insane, like, 50 wins to 8 losses or something like that. Because they know how to make adjustments. They make decisions, they make game plans, they create playbooks, but they're so good at making adjustments that they can come back and win. Okay. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers started off the season, another simple example, at 7-5, 7 wins and 5 losses. That's not very good. That's not very good. They had a bye week. They made some adjustments. They went 8-0 and won the Super Bowl. So making adjustments is so critical and so important, right? And so for you in your decision-making process, it might not be a bye week. It could be a halftime adjustment, right? You might make a decision and notice a day later that decision is no bueno, and you've got to make an adjustment. And that's okay. Like, that's part of life, right? You make decisions. It doesn't work out. You learn from it. But you went, the point is you made the decision based on logic, not emotion. You're making the decision based on logic, right? You have your T-chart, you have your pros and cons, and you have your values. Boom, you're making the decision based on logic, not emotion. But your ego isn't in your way where you're able to take that decision, execute it, go all in, 2 feet in, what, how, when, and then you're able to evaluate and adjust because your ego isn't that big. See this chalkboard right here? Like, you can erase that play. You can erase it. Your decisions have to be written on a chalkboard or a whiteboard or whatever. Or with a pencil. All right? Now that doesn't mean, I want to be very, very clear, that does not mean that you don't go all in on the decision. I just want to be very clear on that. You go all in on that decision. You don't have 1 foot in. But after you've evaluated, you make adjustments. So my challenge for you this week, is to, in your notes in your phone, on a little like sticky notes thing, and we'll have a PDF for you in the notes in the material section of this course. But any decisions that you have this week, right? Your goal, and this is a really important habit to build. So maybe if you want to do it 21 days, is what I would really suggest, is to put in your phone a decision, like label it decisions, and have a section to write in pros and a section to write in cons with the questions that we talked about. And again, this will be a PDF, so you can print out this PDF and you can print out like a bazillion copies and keep it with you. And just write them in there for every decision and start keeping track of all your decisions. And you'll start seeing some trends. It's really cool. You'll start seeing some really interesting trends on what you do. And I can guarantee you're a fence sitter right now, like you just are, or you're a procrastinator. But when you become like a relentless decision maker, the results that you get in the speed that you get them is so much better. So for your top decisions this week, you're gonna have a notepad, and you're gonna ask yourself the 3 questions, right? You're gonna ask yourself. Let me see if I can pop those back up. Yeah, you're gonna ask yourself the 3 questions: can the decision be reversed? Will it get you closer to your goal or not? And are you prepared to execute on them? You're gonna ask yourself those 3 questions, right? You're gonna create yes. You're gonna quickly create a T-chart, right? Pros and cons, and you're going to add values to those pros and cons. You're going to add up those values and you're going to go. You're going to add up those values and you're going to go. You're going to add up and go. And then you're going to execute, right? You're going to figure out what's the what, what's the how, and what's the when. And you're going to write those down and you're going to go. All right? You're going to write those down and you're going to go. The last thing on the sheet or on your phone or your notes or wherever is you're going to have what is the date and time that you're going to go back and evaluate? Is it tomorrow at 2 p.m.? Is it in a week at 6 p.m.? When are you going to go back and evaluate this decision? And then you have to be able to set your ego aside and make a decision. So this, again, once we publish this course, you'll have a PDF with all of this in the notes section, in the material section, excuse me. But for this particular, for all of you walking away from this right now, that's what you're going to have written down. You could do it in your notes. You can put it on a blank sheet of paper, doesn't matter. Sticky pad in your pocket, a little notepad in your back pocket, doesn't matter. But you have this with you, right? And then over time, you can do most of it. You don't have to write it all down. But I highly suggest doing it in the beginning so you can watch your patterns. And then eventually this is in your head, right? And you're answering the questions, yes. You're not making decisions out of emotion. You're making decisions out of logic. You're constantly in your mind creating pros and cons with values. You're deciding the what, the how, and the when. Or if you're in a leadership position, you're delegating it. And then and then I'm going to reevaluate this in a week at this time. And then you're constantly making adjustments. So especially if you're in a leadership role, you're always making adjustments. You're just always making adjustments, right? There's leaders who make adjustments like a chicken with their head cut off. And then there's leaders that have adjustments set at specific times. And that's what all of you will be doing, right? So that's my challenge for you. And I absolutely expect that all of you will get the ball rolling today, right? Get the notepad. You open up that note section in your phone and you start today. Like, we don't start tomorrow. You don't start tomorrow. We start today. Because if you wait, you will forget. You won't have the material. It won't be as important, this and that, and stuff happens, right? You're motivated, but if you don't develop the skill and create the habits, it goes away, right? Very simply. You will be motivated. You want to do it. You know it's important. But if you don't immediately begin to develop the skill and form the habits, it goes off the rails, right? We already know this is the case. So we got to take relentless action. I have got to switch this this boxer. I think it's time. So it is. I'm a little over again today. I know, but we started slow. There was no video. I get that. There was a technical issue. But anyways, look, all of you have an amazing week. Really, have an amazing week. You have your story. You have your decisions, your big decisions that you're going to make today. So, and this week. So make this a priority. Make it a priority to get better at making decisions, and watch how much easier and less fatigue you are from making decisions, so you can have more energy to execute and make adjustments, right? So have an amazing week this week. Have an amazing week. And I will see all of you next Monday morning. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Next Play podcast. If you liked the show, make sure to leave us a review. For more resources, visit relentlessuniversity.com or download the free Relentless University app. And if you're interested in having me speak at your next event, visit relentlessrichie.com. Until next time.